Let us pray. Heavenly Father, tonight we honor you. We give you thanks for our blessings, for freedom and family and faith. You bestowed many gifts upon us. We want to appreciate them and we want to tell you about it. So tonight we need you in special ways, each meeting, each day, each step that we take. Guide us and direct us, and may we desire to do your will above all. In Christ's name, amen.
Everyone be sure when you're speaking, turn your mic on. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Benell.
Present.
Gauntz.
Yes, ma'am.
Honeycutt.
Here.
Kirkpatrick.
Yes, ma'am.
Lowry. Here. Neal.
Here.
Norris.
Here.
Trigg.
Here.
Witcher.
We have no unfinished business, so the first item of new business is Steve Chandler of Oh, I'm sorry. You have the minutes before you of meeting Monday, August 8th, 2022. If you have no additions, deletions, or corrections, I'll accept the motion to accept those.
Motion, Lowry.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lowry.
Second, Kirkpatrick.
Have a second by Councilmember Kirkpatrick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Minutes are accepted. Now, under the unfinished business, we have none. Under the new business, the first item is Steve Chandler with Chandler Thinks LLC, is to present the branding logo and the information thereto.
Small correction, if I may. I'm presenting a lot more than a logo, for sure. It's one of about a dozen different deliverables of this project, and I'm aware, that can be pretty, create a lot of discussion of this branding as a logo. I think the reason originally when you all called our company and after reviewing your proposals, you chose us, is because, not just because we're from Kentucky originally, but it's because we've done this for about 145 different places in the last 15 years, and probably one of the biggest misconceptions of how do you brand a city is simply get a new logo. It doesn't change anything. It's the truth. The reality is branding a city is about a story. It's a story that everybody here, all small businesses, our education, our healthcare, our finance of our community, our arts, our downtown, the exuberance and vibrancy that a community holds creates its reputation. The goal of your communications, including a logo or advertising or posters or pole banners downtown, are simply to be a reflection of the excitement that is that community, right? And that story. That's what it is. So make no mistake, this is about a lot more than a logo. This is about the reputation of our community. So I hope that's okay to set it straight, because if it's just about a logo, you didn't need to hire us. But you did hire us because you said you want this to be about a lot more, that this is the beginning of something big. So it's the beginning. My presentation. Whew, I got a lot to present in a little bitty time because y'all got a big old juicy agenda. All right, so I'm going to try my best to move through it. I apologize for going fast. I do need to move things. People deserve to know, you all need to deserve, besides the committee members that I know, some of you all, the rest of you need to know the whole thing of what we did. I can't possibly tell you all the research and everything, but I can at least summarize it, so I'm going to do my best. So again, pardon me for being quick in things. So we're going to go through that a little bit today. The objectives as identified by the committee of this was community identity and pride. Like, what are we proud of? Who are we? What's important to this community? Well, the only way you get that is you spend a lot of time talking to the community, right? Community and economic development promotion. The reality is, a lot of our economic success is making sure others are interested in continuing to move here, move their business the way we want. Let's preserve who we are so we don't change because outsiders come in. They do it on our terms, right? That's amen worthy right there. There you go. Endorsement. You know the number one marketing for a community? These people. The people of our community. Those are the ones that promote our. We need something that people can endorse, and we need to understand what that is. And then uniformity. People need to recognize us. They need to look at us. They need to go, wow, these guys are happening. They know what's going on. They're not stuck in 1950. So our process, all consultants have a process. We have one too. No one cares what it is, so I'll just move on. All right? But we do a lot of research. but we obviously think it through to a strategy, storytelling, expressions, and then engagement is a plan. There's a plan of what do you need to do moving forward. Nothing is instantly, in the world of marketing and branding, by the way, nothing is instantly loved by everybody. It's okay. It's about what you do with it. It's about action. It's not about promises. It's about putting it into action, putting it into work, getting attention to people. That's what we have to do moving ahead. And and people will warm up to it. Okay? So don't worry. Over 750 people, close to 1,000 people were actually involved. So there were a lot of you all in this room participated in focus groups or interviews. There were community surveys completed. We actually completed surveys for people that do not live in Glasgow, but they live around there. They have an opinion about who you are. It's like your neighbors. They know a lot about you because they see your garage door open at night, right? And a lot of other methods of which we used to get some input. And it wasn't about one thing. It was that we look at it in a lot of different ways. If your name's on this, thank you very much. If your name's not on it, sorry, I just didn't put it on the list. But a lot of people were involved. All right. Again, I can't show you everything. I'm not going to go through this chart, but I do want to make a point. This is called a place branding wheel. And you'll notice there's 8 pillars around this that make up a community's identity. Any city you can think of, these pillars create its identity. Any one can completely make its identity, like any one. Education, right? Think of Athens, Georgia. Most people can only tell you one thing about Athens, Georgia, or Bloomington, Indiana, or Stillwater, Oklahoma, right? Some communities are completely defined by their education. Right? Businesses. Houston, Texas. There's a lot of great things about Houston, Texas, but the oil industry really defines it. I'm from a place just south of Nashville, Tennessee. There's a business in Nashville, Tennessee that's our number one. Can you guess what it is? Guess.
Whiskey.
Good one. So that's Tennessee. Music, you think. You know our number one industry is actually healthcare, but music is what's interesting and that gets people's attention and that they remember. In fact, if you want to use Nashville as an example, everything about Nashville, all of these pillars consist of music. That's why it has such a robust brand. So the goal of branding Glasgow is to understand this. There's a lot of things about Glasgow that's not on this wheel before anyone's like, you forgot something. The point is, everything we do creates our identity. Everything we do creates our identity, right? That means as an organization, the city government is only half the equation. The other half is what everyone else does, but it still affects our reputation, right? We have to work together if we really are serious about building a strong brand, and we do it from the inside out and the ground up, all right? What did we learn about Glasgow? Again, I'm not giving you all the research. I don't have time. You don't have time. But what makes Glasgow prominent? We asked 336 people. What did they say? Surprise, surprise. The lake, great schools, agriculture. Those are the top mentioned assets. When we ask what's really well-known and influential, what makes us who we are, what makes us prominent. There's obviously some other things on here as well that you all can see, right? What do people love about Glasgow? What do they love? Not like, what do they love about it, right? The small town living, close proximity. Louisville and being close to Louisville and Bowling Green, but not the hassle of it, not the churn and burn of those cities. You love being able to know people, right? It's important. That small town living is super, super important. What makes us authentic? Genuine. Look what's here. Quaint, rural town. We still want to maintain that. That's why this is so important, because we have to grow our economy. We can't lose who we are. We have to remain that authenticity, right? You see other things that are on here too. Some of them are very relevant. Again, I'm moving through them quickly. What about our character? What's our soul, our heritage, our customs? A lot of people say farming and agriculture, that's our backbone. It's what's made us who we are, right? Again, you see some other things too. Now you're starting to see a pattern, by the way, of some of these things I'm not mentioning. Scottish heritage was a big part about it. You all really split about the Scottish heritage. I'll address that in a second. What makes us exceptional? In other words, what do we do better than anybody else? Our education. You all love your high schools, both of them. You love them. You're super proud of them. You should be. You see other things on there. You know, it's interesting. There's some things that I have to address. I can't just be good news. Like, oh, you love yourself. You're exceptional. You love farming and agriculture. You like your heritage. All that stuff's important. You love your schools. There's some bad news that I do need to deliver. I have a responsibility of telling you the right thing, not just what you want to hear. So I hope that's okay, because I'm going to do it. But we ask every community we've ever worked with to rate, but on a scale of 1 to 5, is a place to live, a place to visit, a place to start a business. Now, I'll tell you, 3's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. I'll give you an example. If I had a burger joint here in town, and you all ate my burger, and I said, hey, how'd you like the burger? And you went, it's okay. That's a 3. That's average. You want promoters. Promoters are 4. When people are like, yes, come to Glasgow, Kentucky. It's a fantastic place. Are you kidding me? Oh, we got great places on the square, right? We got a little taste of Texas or Yancey's, and there's all kinds of things. Our theater's opened up. It's great. You're going to love it. That's a 4. You've got 3s, right? We need to make sure we're getting that up where people are advocates. In fact, when you really dig in some of our research and with the same type of rating scale, we asked the residents to rate some of these other cultural attributes. Natural beauty starts getting up there. But look at sense of community, and then it just goes down from here. This tells us, as a company that works with a lot of different cities, there's a problem. There's a problem. We've got to find, we're not getting people love, I did the research myself. I see people that love Glasgow, but these ratings say they're disappointed. It's not where they need to be. There's a bar that they're holding Glasgow to in these areas, and it's not being achieved. So you want measurements on this project? Get the attitudes of our community up, and you do that with action. So I didn't bring that out of anywhere. That's where and look at some at the bottom. Shopping options. I mean, these things aren't easy to do at all, but they're great goals that you all can set and put some actions behind it. And I think that's actionable, and that's fantastic. We ask, what's the most unique thing about us? Isn't that part of branding? What's unique and interesting about it? You see what pops out on here? Now, this is a word cloud, by the way, and there's lots of ways that's generated. But the more often things are mentioned, the bigger the word gets, okay? That's how this works. You see a lot of Highland Games, Scottish Heritage, all that. You know, you also see some nothing, and I don't like that, right? You know, again, it gets back to the pride. Nothing. There's nothing unique about this place. You can hear the teenager, you know that's who's doing it, right, teenagers? But Scottish Heritage jumps up, and it's big. We heard it throughout the research. Now, you all had a strategic plan done a few years ago. In fact, that's what led to this project. I think they recommended that your identity is outdated and that our communications is outdated, and we need to do something about it. And in fact, the city has grown tired of its Scottish heritage. I'm going to correct, that's what led to this. I will correct it after doing the research and speaking to a lot of people. I think the city, the residents are tired of the way the Scottish heritage was being portrayed. The reality is it's something to be proud of, but you have to make it exciting. Great heritage executed poorly isn't fun. So no wonder they didn't like it. So I think you have an opportunity to build on that. I wouldn't let go of it. And then a couple other things. How do you think residents of neighboring communities perceive us? We ask residents, how do you think others see us? Don't look at the big number, which is 52%. No, 40. 40% of our community think we have a bad reputation. That's an inferiority complex. Again, it's reinforcing some of the other data that I've shown you. We've got work to do is what this tells me. And then there's this, and I'm sorry, this isn't the fun slide, but we ask about, obviously we're branding the city government, so we have to ask the question, how do you view us? Now, by the way, everybody's a little bit negative. All cities, residents are somewhat a little negative to the city council. Congratulations on public service, right? But these numbers are very high. We're overwhelmingly closed-minded versus open-minded. We're seeing a slow-paced versus fast-paced. We're super conservative versus progressive. We're more siloed than approachable. We're ineffective. We're reactive. Guys, you want some measurements? It starts right here. Ladies, too, excuse me. If we're going to, and what this tells me is, no matter what I do, if people don't trust me, that's what that says. And if they don't trust me, then how am I going to move things forward, right? So it starts with basic communications. And by the way, we asked the question in our research, how important is it that Glasgow actively creates and manages its reputation? Look how overwhelming that is. Absolutely, this is important. This is important to the community. No doubt about it, all right? And when you think of Glasgow, it's the first thing that came to mind. You all didn't say this. We went outside in about about an hour radius of Glasgow. We said, hey, when you think of Glasgow, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Highland Games, Banner Lake, small town. All right, I got to move on. There's a bunch of other things on here too. Downtown Glasgow, I will say the research showed that your downtown has a resurgence of energy in just the last few years, right? Take advantage of that, and the people that are behind it, harness them and empower them. If they're doing it for downtown, they're going to do it for all of Glasgow. And your relationship with the outdoors is important. No wonder your tourism organization has Mammoth Cave and camping right? That's what people associate. And by the way, you do have an inferior complex. When we ask outsiders about the reputation of Glasgow, it was way more positive than you thought it was, right? So give yourself a little break, but let's do something. All right, our strengths, ag heritage, strong connection to outdoors, Downtown's created a stir, and there's absolute equity in your Scottish heritage and your name. Weaknesses, you all, the guys, the ladies on that seat, you have a fractured reputation. We got to do something about it, folks. As a whole, the community lacks confidence and unsure how to brag. They don't know how to brag about themselves, I'd say. Our identity appears to be outdated and ignored. The Scottish theme is perceived by some to have lost its luster. Our opportunities is there is a lot of energy in this community by some individuals. Bring them on board. And your name is always, by the way, connected to Scotland. Like, if you all said, that's it, we don't want to do the Scottish thing anymore, guess what? Tough luck, it is. It's always Scottish. It'll always be Scottish, right? So you might as well learn to have fun with it. Leverage it. The Middle Tennessee Scottish games are about 45 minutes south of here, by the way. They should be up here. Threats, continue bickering and not open to new ideas. This is a pivotal point. Y'all didn't know you were hiring me for this, did you? Frustrated, positive energy could burn out and leave. Actually, I'll give you credit. You knew this. I think one of the reasons we were chosen is because we're not going to smooth it over. We're going to be honest with you so you can build on something. That's the goal of this. All right, so our recommendations were, number one, how about a communications person? You all do not have a dedicated communications person, right? Someone told me, it's like, well, I don't know that we really need a dedicated communications person. We have nine, is there 9 of you? We don't really need a full-time person for 9 people. No, you don't. You need it for 17,000. Your community deserves to know what's going on. Communication is trust. I learned that in marriage therapy many years ago, right? So let's do this, right? So it's just communication. People know what's going on. They're going to trust you. When they trust you, they believe in you, and they're all going to get behind it, and then we create some energy behind us. It don't matter about the logo. It matters about communication. That's what you pay for. 2, we need a positive attitude to rally behind. Organize enthusiasm. I can't say that enough. Stay positive and back it up. You don't need huge wins. Little bitty ones will get enthusiasm and momentum. And 3, tell your story of small-town values, ag roots, and beautiful outdoor connection. That's your story. That's the story of your heritage. And yes, Scottish. Don't turn away from your Scottish heritage. Don't do that. Do you know how many places would love to have something that instantly means something? It's like the best branding opportunity in the world. It's what you do with it. Look up Dublin, Ohio, and see what they do. And it's an upscale community outside of Columbus, Ohio. And there's not a redheaded person in town, by the way. But Irish is an attitude there. Anyway, so how do we tell that story? I'm not going to... here's our brand platform statement. It is a strategic statement that sums up what we believe is the Glasgow brand. For families and businesses seeking to grow a life in the pleasant traditions of a quaint small-town atmosphere, Glasgow sits in the beautiful rolling hills of South Central Kentucky, where both heritage is valued and personal opportunity can be bountiful. So life feels relaxing, and all you want is still obtainable. Everything that you want. You can have anything you want here. Yeah, International Airport, you're just over an hour away. Two of them, right? You can have all that you want and get away from all that you want all in the same place. It's a wonderful opportunity here. No doubt about it. So we created a story. I'm not going to read it because it takes about 3 minutes just by itself, and you all want to see fun-looking stuff, right? But what I can tell you, your story matters because your story is what's told by people, right? When you go in a shop and go, why do you have this? Well, let me tell you. Like I went by the police station. Why is there a Scottish thing on there? Well, how come I went to the state park and there's a big Scottish thing there? Or in your city hall? What is that? It's a story. And what makes a great, authentic story, which is how we all brag about our city, is it's different no matter who you talk to, but it's consistent. That's why we start the process with a story. As you can see, it's about 1,500 words. So, our personality of Glasgow, we're a welcoming community. We're friendly, family atmosphere, rooted, rural, caring, outdoorsy, and practical. No nonsense. We're not fancy. We're not in your face. That's not how we do business. We're matter of fact, friendly. We're either going to shake your hand or hug you. That's Glasgow. That's why we made some of the decisions that we did. Let's skip over that. So, approach the new Glasgow logo. This is your current logo. I spoke to someone before, and they're like, I like our logo. I was like, you're probably from here, aren't you? And the gentleman had served and had been here quite a while. And he's like, yeah, I'm from here. I like it just fine. I said, that's good. Economic developers and businesses that are moving to our community, that tells them it's outdated, that we're not up with the times. So it kind of landed us where we are. All right, so our recommendation, we went to a lot of different logos. You want to know specifically, we went to about 17 different logo options, but we landed on this one eventually. It's not in your face on purpose. In fact, it's clean, it's modern, professional. Look at where we are, where we were, and where we are now. It says we're 2022. But we're not trying to be Bowling Green. We're not trying to be Louisville. We're trying to be Glasgow. Let tourism have their logo with all the cool stuff on it and fun enthusiasts. But we have a responsibility as a municipality. We have to cover a lot of things, right? So the logo is simple. It's straightforward. We went out of our way to make sure there wasn't big. We had some options with things on it. It wasn't right because we have so much to do. It does reflect confidence. It reflects our traditions. There's a touch of personality in that. We have a color palette. It's about ag heritage, our connection to the outdoors. Cooler blues create opportunity and professionalism, right, that we needed to maintain, right? So you can see our logo on the left. There's what it looks like with any of the departments on the right. We even have, again, bragging about where you live, bragging about your organization should be fun. So let's have some fun. We have a line, Heritage with Opportunity, and what that looks like. Right? This is a place that values its heritage, but there is great opportunity. Let's have a version of it with our tartan on there. That's actually, I think that's an actual Glasgow tartan, right? Let's learn to have fun when appropriate to use that, right? And now, how would that look in communications? I don't know, maybe something like this. Where you come from can say a lot about how you support new businesses. By the way, this is important. I'm trying to make a point. Never, ever, 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 ever have any communications about your city without actual people from your city in it. No stock photography. I took some liberty. I'm using photography here. Do not use it. I'm not an advocate of that. I'm only trying to show you how to sell the city, okay? Photo shoot can happen next week, right? But look, where you come from can say a lot about how you support new businesses, right? And show that we're about entrepreneurs and startups here, right? Look how we use the tartan here. I'm having a little bit of fun. Heritage with opportunity. Now, that looks like a cool place. This isn't an outdated place, and it's about the people. I dig that, right? Where you come from can say a lot about where you're headed, right? Let's encourage our kids to come back after they go to Western. Come back here and start up a business. Let's get those entrepreneurs going, right? So again, I'm just giving you an example, but this is a cool community when I see this. And yes, where you come from can say a lot about how you approach life. What if we actually took on the traits and the characteristics of Scottish heritage and use them to our own advantage, right? Because being rooted in family is important to this place, much like your Scottish heritage. I'm very aware of where your name came from and all that stuff too, by the way. But let's have some fun, right? Again, I'm not going to go deep into a plan. I'll just show you a couple of quick things and I'll be done. But what is your plan to make it real simple? 5 steps. First of all, we need to update our communications, like our stuff. We need to look. We need to be consistent. Like all your business cards and staff, everybody has to be a uniform. Remember, that's part of it. Then we got to also think about creating a sense of place. When I get off on the Parkway, I know you know this. I just have the luxury of being the consultant. I can come in and act like I don't know anything and get credit for it sometimes, right? I get it, right? When I get off on the Parkway, that exit looks atrocious. That doesn't say this is where you need to invest your money. Oh, we got to park. I know the highway is there. We got to get federal involved and we got to get state involved and do it. It's our image, our reputation is everything, right? And there needs to be a sign right there that says historic downtown this way. Oh, really? Oh, cool. I was just going to get some gas, but I didn't know that historic downtown. Great. Merchants will love that, right? So we got to create a sense of place. We got to engage our employees, right? You go through any branding, any company in the world, Disney's always at the top, right? But you know the most important people are in delivering your products and services? Your employees. So they have to be indoctrinated. So HR is just as much about branding than your logo on a business card. They are the ones that deliver it. Then we're locked and loaded. Now we got to engage our community. Remember that place branding wheel? Everybody has to be involved somehow. So what do we do there? And then measurement. Let's make this something that's long term. It should be. So I'll fly through the creative, but here you go. So here's an idea of what your business card envelopes can look like. Oh, wow, it's a professional, clean, updated image. It looks pretty good. And if you just want to have a little fun, they can look like this. How about that? Ha, 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 ha. Y'all got to lighten up, man. This is fun. It's about bragging about where we live. It's about bragging about our city. This is fun stuff, right? Here's your website now. Boo. That's okay. It's all right. I'm just playing with you. But it really doesn't look good. So, but update it. How about this? To go to this. Where do you want to move? Where's your first impression? I'll go, sign me up. And by the way, if one of you all designed this, don't take it personal. Everybody, trust me, half of y'all don't like my logo. It's okay, right? It's okay. But look, that's a welcoming, clean place. And by the way, what's the center of your community? First impression? You're downtown, because that's your energy and your core. right? Look, on the left are how you make announcements. Did you know your Facebook page? You all may not know this because no one's really following your Facebook, by the way. But it's boring. No offense to who does it. That's not their full-time job. My case in point, it's no one's full-time job. On social media, I know it seems like that's what the young people do. No, it's not. It's what the old people do. It's how we know what's going on. Communicate with your citizens. On the left is how we show that there's a city council meeting. It could look like the one on the right. See the difference? That just says we're relevant, we care, and if our image is important, then our whole community's image is important. Is what it says. The first one says it doesn't matter. All right? So these could all be social media announcements for events, things. Look, there's annual concert on the square. Like, let's be hip, let's be cool, right? Let's show that we're relevant with stuff. So this is what our communications can look like. We even built PowerPoints for you. So when you get presentations, they look nice, right? So we actually have files for you for actual PowerPoint presentations, and there's about 5 or 6 of them. I'm not showing them all now. I talk about creating a sense of place. Here's your current signs on the left, and I know there's such great personal pride in these things, and I'm not into critique the flag of all things, of course, or even the Scottish shadow, but you don't know what it is. It's tough to see, right? I'm even for use existing, just clean it up. You don't have to get fancy with everything you do. Right? Sometimes be simple makes a stronger, cleaner statement. Right? So there's an example of how a good application of that logo typeface just used for the purpose of just say welcome. You don't have to get a crazy sign. That's a nice piece of artwork, but it doesn't really make the best welcome sign. Big difference, right? Here's what wayfinding can look like. Just as we're not a wayfinding company, but we do a lot of this, of course. But you get an idea of how you can create uniformity and a sense of place and professionalism and cleanliness around your community with touches of your tartan, right? Here's what pole banners could look like downtown. That looks cool. What am I going to say? How about eat, shop, and play? How about that? Don't make it complicated, right? And now all of a sudden, this is a place that's together in their presentation. Remember I told you that directional sign, right? And by the way, a great sign doesn't clean up what's around it. So you've got to do that. But why don't we have a sign that says downtown this way, right? Let's get them at the end of that exit, right? Engage employees. Well, we have a lot of recommendations, I'll just say, that are in our report of what to do with employees and how to get them involved, how to get HR involved, employee culturalization, immersion, things like that. I think it's super important. And then engaging their community. There's a lot of things I actually think you all need to create, and it's our number one recommendation in this section, is create a branding team, a committee. If you believe in what I told you about the wheel, that everyone's involved, then prove it. But if you believe it, then create a committee. You had one for this to get this project started. My recommendation is expand that committee to be people that aren't on council. Right? You know who I'll start with? About 2 or 3 people from downtown, because that's where all the happening is. That's where the buzz is. Get people downtown. Get them on board. Schools have to be involved because the community loves their schools. Make sure they're a part of it. Right? Let's do it. So create a branding committee. You're not the first. Marshall County did this. They called it Team Kentucky Lake. They created a branding committee. So you all can do the same thing, and then all of a sudden it becomes organic. They don't need to mess with your logo and your stuff, but if the reputation of the community is everything we do, now you've got a group of people involved. We have a lot of specific recommendations of how to make that happen, by the way. Have some fun with shirts. I don't even like the one on the left, but our designer loved it. But, have fun. That's all I can say is have fun, right? Look, golf club. I mean, we just went to town on some silly stuff, right? Golf club covers, got it on there. Give me a ball, what it looks like a logo, great, blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal. This is about a story. It's not about a logo. I can't emphasize that enough. That's a whole other thing. It's way bigger than that. I hope you understand that. As fast as I went, I tried to at least enunciate somewhat clearly. I'm from Kentucky too, by the way. I'm from Davis County, so I go too fast. You can't understand me that well. But I'm excited because you all have nowhere to go but up. We ain't going backwards. Right? And I know it seems like I'm making light of some bad stuff. Yeah, because you wouldn't have hired us, you wouldn't have paid for it if you weren't willing to put it into action. And so I applaud you for that. But do note, I promised you this when you were interviewing me, and I hope I delivered it, in that it's more than a logo. It's about a story, and it's told in everything that you do. And it starts with building trust. We couldn't have a fancy, crazy line and a fancy, crazy logo, honestly, because people don't trust us. We got to be clean, professional, and put it to work. That's the goal. So thank you all very much. I appreciate your time. Any quick questions? I know it took a lot of time, but I thought it was necessary.
I'd like to make a comment about the tartan. That is not a Glasgow Scotty tartan. It's not a Barron County Trojan tartan or University of Kentucky or University of Louisville tartan or even a Western tartan, even though it has a lot of red in it. It is City of Glasgow. The reason we can use City of Glasgow is because on our first Highland Games, the Lord Provost of the City of Glasgow, which is their mayor, came to our Highland Games, and he gave the city special permission to use that tartan as our official tartan. Now, to the Scottish, a tartan is a family or an area. So this is the area of Glasgow, it's the family of Glasgow, and that's why I think it belongs on there, because we want to be a family, we want to be close together, and we want to project that image to everyone.
Hey, I would tell you, great job. Next steps are get the committee, and I'm assuming we'll get this information that you just presented, and then are you able to give us insight as to, the hardest part is get started in any journey. And sometimes I think that we have good ideas, we just don't have an expert to initiate them. So, is that part of, I don't even know what the contract.
You're actually pretty darn close. There has to be an owner to get this thing going. It can't be someone like, whenever I get to it, it has to be ownership. That's why our number one recommendation is, really, you need to hire a communications person. Whether you do or do not, this project isn't going to go anywhere if somebody doesn't own it. That's the truth. But you need a person. You need a person that is updating your social media every day, several times a day. They're doing newsletters to the community, letting them know what's going on for people that want to do it, keeping your website up to date, because you definitely need a new website. Like, you definitely need a new website. Somebody's got to keep that up to date, right? It's important. You know where I'm going in 2 weeks? Unfortunately, I'm going to Portland, Oregon. But I'm going to the City County Communications and Marketing Conference. There's an annual conference. Are you familiar with 3CMA? 3CMA, the City County Communications Marketing Association, is the national conglomerate of communications people for city governments. You need to have somebody there, because you know what they talk about? How to deal with public input that gets irate over a logo, is an example. Or backlash on social media. You know what? You should pray for backlash on social media, because that means people are watching and you're communicating with them. Right now, you're not getting anything, right? There's a lot of it. They're just not. It's not in front of you, right? You need somebody going to 3CMA conference. I got your place this year, okay? I'll come back and do a report of everything I learned. But next year, you need to send somebody to that conference. You need to know what's going on and be up to date of how other cities are doing it. And cities much smaller than you have a communications person. I promise you. It's awkward because you've never had one. It's okay. But start doing it. So hire that person, or immediately you've got to identify someone, either that on the committee, or maybe there's someone else that would take this lead to get it off the ground. I would recommend at first that it's someone on staff, because that's where you need to infiltrate everything first anyway.
Mayor Armstrong, I'd just like to say a few words. Steve, we appreciate the work you've done thus far, and we look to continuing the work. I know there's things that we've got to get done, so we appreciate the work that you've done, the committee that's worked on this, and then all the responses that people made to us that gave us the input on this and fed into the information. So we from the city, we appreciate it. We thank you for your honesty and your being professional in your presentation and just the expertise that you have. So we look forward to implementing these suggestions that you made. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We've got work ahead of us, but that's nothing normal. Nothing that's abnormal. It's all normal in what we're doing now. But that was a very good presentation, and we appreciate all the information. We knew we had shortcomings. We just didn't know we were in the basement, got to work our way up. But we can. Thank you. First item is first reading the ordinance accepting the use of the Glasgow logo as presented from Chandler Links LLC.
City of Glasgow Ordinance Number 2022-blank, ordinance accepting use of City of Glasgow logo as presented from Chandler Thinks LLC for modern representation of today's communications for speaking to residents, businesses, or visitors. Whereas the City of Glasgow Strategic Planning Committee partnered with the Glasgow Barron County Community Foundation and contracted Chandler Thinks LLC for the sole purpose of branding, creating a new logo for the City of Glasgow, reference resolution number 2021-2498. And whereas the City of Glasgow Strategic Planning Committee has met with Chandler Thinks LLC and have agreed upon and is recommending to the Glasgow City Council to select option 3A as attached here to as Exhibit A. And whereas the proposed color palette rationale maintains a feel of Glasgow agriculture heritage and connection to the outdoors, the cooler blues are used to create a story of opportunity and professionalism. And whereas the proposed logo moves Glasgow forward with a modern and professional representation, purposefully straightforward and without additional graphics beyond its name, showing modern municipal government is approachable and type style reflects confidence and traditions. Whereas Chandler Thinks LLC has created a complete identity standards guide pertaining to the city logo, such as color usage and shape. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky as follows. Section number 1. The City of Glasgow accepts the new City of Glasgow logo designed by Chandler Thinks LLC, which is all caps Glasgow, style type being a modified version of Purple Rust, and is blue PMS 5405. The name is curved slightly and centered. The smaller in all caps Kentucky is type style Milk Store 03 Clean and is green PMS 575. It is centered beneath the Glasgow name. A small round bullet is on both sides of the Kentucky name, also in PMS 575. Section number 2, the change to city property and other uses of the city logo will be gradual and implemented over time. Section 3, this ordinance is adopted pursuant to KRS 83A.060, and said ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage, signature, and publication. Harold Armstrong, Mayor, attest upon the Simmons City Clerk. First reading, August 22nd, 2022.
Having heard the first reading of this ordinance, do I have a motion to accept?
Motion by Benel.
Motion by Manel, second by Neal. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. First reading passes. The next item on the agenda is first reading of an ordinance adding 2 additional Glasgow Police Department law enforcement officers to the next fiscal year budget. And as you know, before he reads this, for the last 2 years, every time the chief has done her presentation, she's asked to be expanded by 3 to 40 so she can do the job that they've been hired for. But she has requested up to 2 more currently, so that's what this request is for, and that's what this is going to justify.
City of Glasgow Ordinance Number 2022-blank, an ordinance adding 2 additional Glasgow Police Department law enforcement officers to the next fiscal year budget 2023-2024 and continuing thereafter. Whereas by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky, that Glasgow Chief of Police Jennifer Arbogast has expressed concern to Mayor Armstrong and Glasgow City Council during the annual department presentation on June 13, 2022. The Glasgow Police Department needs more officers and needs approval of the City Council to increase the amount of law enforcement officers from 37 to 39. A letter from Chief Arbogast is attached here too as Exhibit A. And whereas the current fiscal year annual budget has already been approved by the Glasgow City Council, therefore this request will take effect for the next fiscal year 2023-2024 and continue thereafter. And now therefore be it hereby ordained by the City of Glasgow as follows. Section number 1. The Glasgow City Council understands the concern and obligation of this community with needing more law enforcement officers with the increase of more incident calls than ever before. Understanding that the call volume is very high with the number of domestic assaults, mental health situations, and drug activity increasing yearly. Section number 2. The Glasgow City Council approves the addition of 2 officers to our police force, bringing total from 37 to 39. Section number 3, the Glasgow City Council approves the additional monies and all monies involved for additional personnel to the annual budget beginning fiscal year 2023-2024 and continuing thereafter. That this ordinance, Section 4, that this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its date of passage, signature, and publication as required by law. Harold Armstrong, Mayor, attest Mona Simmons, City Clerk, first reading August 22nd, 2022.
Having heard this first reading, do I have a motion to accept?
Motion, Norris.
Have a motion by Norris, and a second. Second by Witcher. Second by Witcher.
Mayor Armstrong, before we vote on it, you want to go ahead? Okay. Is there a reason that we're looking at the 2023-2024, and we're not looking at the current budget for the placement of these 2 officers?
Mainly because we're down 1 or 2 right now, and they're in the hiring process, so it'll probably take, if they get somebody lined up to send to school by the end of the year, it will be in the next budget year before they're actually hired. That's the reason we'd already done this budget. That's the reason she asked for 2 beginning next year. But, I mean, if y'all want to amend that and amend the budget and give her permission to go ahead now, that's entirely up to you guys.
My concern is, if we moved on this right now, we're voting for them down the road, and we're taking it out of someone else's hands in the 2023-2024 budget, which could be a different council, a different mayor, et cetera. So I would feel more comfortable voting on it with this current budget, because I'm sitting on the council this year and it's my responsibility. So I would say, I would like to make a motion that we amend this and that we move it to the 2022-2023 budget, and that we do it as an amendment to that budget for the hiring of the 2 additional officers.
I'll second that.
Second.
Do I have a second? Seconds.
Any further discussion
Any more
on the
discussion
amendment?
on the amendment?
I'd like to know the cost of the amendment.
2 officers, we figured 2 weeks ago when we were figuring for the SROs, it's about at the beginning officer at the beginning rate, time you take retirement and everything, it's about $52,000 to $56,000. And there may be some of these officers transfer that are at a little bit higher pay grade, but you're looking at probably about $104,000 to $112,000 increase in their budget. Is the chief in here?
Yes.
Chief, isn't that about what was figured for 2 additional officers, a little over $100,000 a year? Like 104, 106?
I'd say it'd be a little more than that, but depending on once you add all their benefits in. And I can't give you an actual number. I would have to get with Stephanie and you and figure out what each, because they have their
We
benefits.
figured for 1,500 hours, which...
Yeah, that was on a school resource officer,
Yeah.
but that's running them 9 months out of
That
a
was
12 years, so
56,800, so
57 something.
I'd say that you're probably looking closer to 150 to 175 probably.
Plus more cruisers? Plus more cruisers?
We would,
I'm already short cruisers.
we're already too short of cruisers. If you added that too, you're looking at a $250,000 adjustment if you did it now.
Just thinking about honoring the thought process and the work she's done to think this through, I'll probably vote no on the other.
Hey, Chief, I got a couple of questions for you. Starting with, as long as I've been on this council, every police chief has come in for more officers. And we get this same statement that we've had an increase in all of the crimes. First off, we appreciate everything you and your force is doing to keep this community livable. So I guess the gist of what I'm saying is in the past, the chief came in and says, for the number of folks for our community, here's the number of police officers we need to do our job. So since you've been in office, have you added other personnel? Have you had an increase in personnel since you've been in office?
Additional officer, no, sir.
Not counting even the RSOs or?
No, the SROs was already, that was in there. When I came in, that was already in there, so.
So your predecessor, since you were on the police force, how many did he do on an annual 4-year basis increase of personnel? Or do you remember offhand?
I don't recall that offhand.
And I think some of the other council members.
But I know the number has stayed the same for some time.
Over 12 years, it hadn't changed. I can't tell you back past that.
And
But for the last 12 years, it's been at 37.
it's been that for some time. And there comes a point, I mean, you're gonna have to grow. The crime rate is increasing, the calls are getting more serious. It's not a matter of, when it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And we need to make sure we're ready for it. All of us are there.
Chief, how many officers do you have right now?
Allotted 37, I'm 4 short right now, with the 2 that just retired. So we're 4 short.
So Chief Arbogast, these 2 additional officers, is it realistic to think it would be after the first of the year before you would be able to hire Officer 38 and 39, given that you're already 4 short?
I've got 1 in the process, 1 to go, 1 coming, be 2 short. It would be closer to the first of the year, yes. Before they would probably, they would be hired, but before it would be after the first year before they probably got into the school.
So that does cut down on the amount of money that would be needed to
Yes, the
fulfill
less
this
officers-
request, 22-23.
Yes. The less officers that we have, the less officers that we're spending.
And then,
Perfect world, we would have 40 officers, but that's not a perfect world, so.
and then Chief Arbogast, then the city was reimbursed for the service officers, the ones in the school system, right?
Yes, that contract was just signed, and it's up to $140,000, and I think the mayor and the superintendent talked that, of course, that's good for this year, this school year, and it will have to be reevaluated the incoming school year, so, and with the anticipation that it's going higher.
And we've added adding 2 officers, that's their plan, for 2 schools that were within the city limits of Glasgow, correct?
I mentioned it to him, I've given him the numbers, I have not heard back,
Yeah.
and at this point, I have advised him to reach out to the mayor, because the finance part of that is out of my control. It is between the mayor and the superintendent.
Okay.
But do I have the officers that could fill that? I did. The longer you wait, the less likely they're going to be there, and they're going to go somewhere else, so,
Those are on a part-time basis too, Terry.
yes, and on a part-time, those was part-time. All the school resource officers, the 4 we have right now, are all part-time officers, minus 1. He is a full-time still, he is not retired. But our other ones, I had one that had retired and was working the road, who has now went back to part-time. That's what he wanted, if we had a slot open, and so he got to go to the SRO, which does save you a little money.
So in a perfect world, we wouldn't need any police officers.
Well, that'd be right.
So
We
it's
wouldn't need-
imperfect world. That's what you're saying.
Yes, we need, yes.
Perfect
We
world,
need
we'd
to-
like to
it'd
get
be
to
great,
6 o'clock
you
at
know.
night and not let anybody in or out.
It would, and that's the reason I asked when I wrote the letter, I said, will you guys just consider it, look at it, and think about it, because we need to be moving forward and not just staying at a still, at a moment of not moving.
Do you feel that the addition of 2 officers would also decrease the amount of overtime that you're paying?
Sure. If you had.
In terms of cost
Yes.
effectiveness,
Yes.
adding 2 more patrolmen could cut down on the overtime that you're paying right now.
Yes. If you could get fully staffed and they're working their hours, you're going to have less overtime because, now, we work a lot of events. We do a lot for our community, but we like to stay active in our community, and I won't take that away from them. But absolutely, yes, ma'am.
I believe every section in the city doesn't have enough manpower. In other words, you can have the slots, but
Don't
can
mean
you
you're going to
fill
get them
it?
filled.
That's my question. What are you going to do to try to fill these, make sure you get the 4 you need, and then these additional 3? That's
keep going out word of mouth, and we keep putting it out there and advertising it, and we are getting applications. But I mean,
But you have two in the process right now that are experienced officers that are possibility of hiring
yes,
to take
yes. I know,
two
yes,
of
what you're
those
talking about.
4 slots.
One of them I just hired, and one of them is thinking of coming this way, so. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I told you on the get-go, even with the, and I said with some of you longer time, and said, you know, you need to get your pay up there. You need to be competitive with surrounding areas. You need to get your pay up there. It's time that this community moves forward. You had a Brandon guy back here that just told you all about it. So, I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
Councilman, something that's been instigated or been initiated, I'm sorry, in the last year and a half or so, is if you're an officer in another county or in another part of the state or in this county, if you've been on and certified for, say, 10 years and you're looking to come here, used to, we had to start you back at 0 at the beginning pay. But we have got a guideline that we will give you half the time if you've had no red flags, never been fired or something like that. If you've been there for 10 years, you could come in here at a 5-year pay, and that's beginning, I think, to make a difference.
Yes, that is one thing to help, yes.
That's one thing to do to get help, to get certified officers so that you don't have to spend to send them to school.
My last question is, does the Finance Committee need to look at this before we make this decision, if you're going to include it in this budget? Or are you speaking for the Finance Committee as a member of that?
I'm not speaking for the Finance Committee. Members of the Finance Committee can speak for themselves. They're very capable of doing that, and I would encourage them to, but we as a community, when
Can we afford it?
yeah, I feel we've got to afford it. I mean, you've heard incidents across the United States where there's been occurrences with lack of law enforcement or lack of training for law enforcement, and there's been major incidents. And I feel as a council member, we're responsible for protecting our community, wherever they are in our community, whatever the facility they're in our community, whether it be a school or business or a meeting like this. And so I know the dollars are there, and we've got to make it happen. We've got to support the police chief in it, and the protection of our community, to me, comes first on this. So you've got to walk down the street feeling good about it, and you've got to go in a shop feeling good about it, and you've got to have an event on the square feeling good that we can have an event and not worry about what's going to happen. So that's my sentiment, and I can't answer, a dollar amount. Again, I'm not speaking for the Finance Committee. I trust the police chief. I've ridden with police officers, and when you're out on I think it was a Friday night, I was riding and you have an incident and you have 4 vehicles out patrolling. And all 4 vehicles went to this one incident. It was a fight. So we were in one section of town. We had all of our police at that one location. We had something else that happened. It'd been a while responding. So we need that extra patrol on the street. It's going to happen. I don't want it to happen to you. I don't want it to happen to anybody in this room. So, I'm in favor of this, and I'm saying we need to move forward with it. There's a need there.
I'll second
had the
that,
discussion. And so, other members on the Finance Committee can speak, but that's how I feel.
We applaud our chief and her staff. They've done exceptional work, at least since she's been on the force. It's been quiet. The work's been done in an effective, very good way. And, yeah, I'm for the ordinance, but I think the amendment would be okay, but I will go ahead and vote for the ordinance as is and give that process to work out. But it's going to take a while. And amen to Terry and Joe's comments. I think the amens we've heard from the people. And we need to do better. And that's a positive thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a first and second to amendment on the floor, correct? And we've had question. So we vote on that amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment the motion as amended, signify by saying aye.
No, the amendment that it would be this year's budget instead of next year's budget.
That's what we're voting on,
Right.
the amendment. Let's have a roll call vote, just in case, please.
Benel,
Yes.
Gauntz,
Yes, ma'am.
Honeycutt,
Yes.
Kirkpatrick,
Yes, ma'am.
Lowry,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Norris.
No.
Trigg,
Yes.
Witcher.
Yes.
The amendment passes as read. The first reading of it does. We will have a second reading.
Now you've got to do the motion on the ordinance as amended, that you get the 2 extra officers, but it'd be this year's budget instead of next year's.
Okay? Repeat that.
Okay, this next vote will be on the ordinance as amended. The original ordinance was to add 2 officers next year. It's been amended to add 2 officers this year. So the vote now will be whether or not you add the 2 officers, but if they're added, it will be for this year's budget.
We already have a first and a second.
Got a first and a second.
We need a roll call vote for that.
Kirkpatrick,
Yes, ma'am.
Lowry,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Trigg,
Yes.
Witcher, Benel,
Yes.
Gauntz, Honeycutt.
Okay, that's the first reading with the amendment. So we will go with that the next meeting for the second reading. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance closing an access way approximately 10 feet wide located the length of the buildings behind East Washington Street to pedestrian traffic only. And you'll see exhibit of 2 or 3 exhibits that go along with that. The property owners of those 3 buildings have sent an agreement that they want that closed to motorized vehicles, with the exception that there'll be a post at the end of both ends of that in case there has to be a delivery that takes a truck there, that it can be removed and get a truck in there to make a delivery. Other than that, it'll be pedestrian traffic only. And you'll see that attached with your, the exhibits attached to this ordinance.
City of Glasgow ordinance number 2022-blank, an ordinance closing access way approximately 10 feet wide located length of buildings behind East Washington Street to pedestrian traffic only. That whereas pursuant to KRS 82.405, all the property owners in or abutting that certain portion of a public way, specifically being access way located behind buildings along East Washington Street attached hereto as Exhibit A and as shown on the diagram attached hereto as Exhibit B, have consented to the closing of said public way. And whereas written consents pursuant to KRS 82.405 have been signed by all the property owners in or abutting the public way proposed to close. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the City of Glasgow as follows. Section number 1. Pursuant to KRS 82.4052, the following findings of fact are made. The property owners in or abutting the public way proposed to be closed are Tim Gooden, owner, 111 East Washington Street, Bobby Richardson, owner, 117 and 119 East Washington Street, and 121 East Washington Street, and Beth Wagner, owner, 111 South Broadway Street. The proposed closing has been agreed upon by all the previously mentioned property owners in or abutting the public way or portion thereof being closed. All the previously mentioned property owners have given their notarized written consent to the closing, and the written consent is attached hereto as Exhibit A. Section number 2, there will be a removable non-access point posted at each end of the proposed access way closure for deliveries as indicated on the attached diagram Exhibit A. Section 3, that this ordinance shall take take effect and be enforced from and after its date of passage, signature, and publication as required by law. Harold Armstrong, Mayor, attest Mona Simmons, City Clerk. First reading, August 22nd, 2022.
Having heard this ordinance, do I have a motion to accept?
Motion, Norris.
Have a motion by Councilmember Norris, a second by Councilmember Neal. All those in favor signify by saying...
Question,
Okay.
does this violate any fire code or anything like that?
No, because access is still available through the parking lot. It's at the end of the parking lot. Any other questions? I have a first and a second. All those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. First reading of the closing of the access way has been approved. Next item is Resolution 2022, a resolution authorizing the City of Glasgow, Kentucky to dispose of surplus equipment pursuant to the law that the Glasgow Police Department has designated as surplus.
City of Glasgow Resolution Number 2022-blank, a resolution authorizing the City of Glasgow, Kentucky to dispose of surplus equipment pursuant to law that the Glasgow Police Department has designated as surplus. Be it hereby resolved by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky as follows. Number one, that the Glasgow Police Department has designated several items as surplus and is listed on Exhibit A that needs to be disposed of. Number two, items for surplus are, number one, 2006 Dodge Charger, 12 non-working printers without cords, 10 rod and reels, boxes of tackle, 3 computer monitors, and 1 box of universal round mounts for tablets. All items will be sold as is. Number 3, per KRS 424-130, subsection 1, subsection B, that the items listed above will be sold by electronic auction following publication, including URL for the auction site, and shall be disposed of pursuant to law. Be it further resolved by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky, that Harold Armstrong, Mayor of the City of Glasgow, shall be and hereby is authorized and directed to execute any and all documents necessary to complete the disposal of these items pursuant to law. So adopted this 22nd day of August, 2022, Harold Armstrong, Mayor, attest Mona Simmons, City Clerk.
Having heard this resolution, do I have a motion to accept it?
Motion Kirkpatrick.
Motion by Councilmember Kirkpatrick,
Second by Benel.
second by Councilmember Benel. All those approved signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Resolution passes.
Hey, Mayor, before we go to the next point, I'd like to see if we could suspend the rules or whatever the right connotation to let Judge John Alexander speak to the body.
There'll be nobody speaking from the audience. That's part of the guidelines for this resolution.
So he's not able to speak. Can we vote on that?
No. Nobody from the council, people from the council can speak but to each other, but nobody in the crowd can speak or nobody can have questions addressed to them.
We're not allowed to make a motion to amend the agenda?
I don't know if that's, is that an acceptable motion?
Danny, is it acceptable to make a motion to amend the agenda to allow the Honorable Judge John Alexander to address the council concerning city business?
It's not that I don't want him to be, we're not going to get into an argument or somebody else wants to speak. I think you'd have to let them too. But see what the ruling is.
Thank you.
Agenda has been set, however, if I deem that we can have one request, we can have Judge Alexander, if that will limit any questioning from anybody else, then if you want to do that, I will allow it.
Okay, yes, I would like,
I'll second that.
we have to vote on that motion, correct?
You have to vote whether to let it, yes. First and second, all those that want to
We have to.
Benel,
Yes.
Gauntz, Honeycutt, Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Lowry, Neal, Norris,
Yes.
Trigg, Witcher.
allow to speak on call. We've got 3 or 4 things to go over before we can go to the resolution. One of the guidelines for this is that the county will get the appraisal on the property. If this is voted to give them the option, they will be responsible for paying for the appraisal on that property. We as sellers would be obligated to get a current survey. And whatever, and the appraisal has to be from a general certified appraiser. The county can, because they're designated, can give no more than an appraisal, and the city can take no less than the appraisal. So giving them the option doesn't mean it's sold, it gives them the option to do their due diligence to see if that's going to work out for them. And the only other thing that I'm obligated to do is to address you, Councilman Gauntz. We have disclosure to let you know, in case you don't know, that we have written and verbal documentation that you have a conflict in this vote. However, all I have to do is tell you, we have that information, so you can do with it as you decide if you want to do it.
Yes, sir, and I'll be voting and speaking, and whatever can happen, happen.
Then the procedure will come thereafter, so there's no excuse for you to understand that that proof is in the.
Absolutely, and just as long as everybody knows, that's fine.
Okay. The only other thing, I don't have anything else to say. I have some other comments. I'm not going to get into all that. Read the resolution.
City of Glasgow Resolution 2022-blank, a resolution for the City of Glasgow to accept the option to purchase agreement from Barron County magistrates to purchase land. Whereas the City of Glasgow owns property in the city that's become essential to the magistrates of Barron County Fiscal Court, therefore a 180-day option to purchase agreement with the City of Glasgow to build a judicial center has been proposed. Whereas map identification numbers are G1-7-2, G1-7-22, G1-7-2A, which totals to 5.09 acres. A site aerial photo is attached as Exhibit A to be surveyed for exact acreage. And now therefore be it resolved by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky, that the City Council does hereby agree to accept the proposal of option to purchase from the Barron County magistrates in this resolution. Therefore, Mayor of the City of Glasgow is authorized and directed to execute the agreement for and on behalf of the city, and the city clerk is authorized and directed to attest such signature. So adopted this 22nd day of August, 2022, Harold Armstrong, Mayor, attest Mona Simmons, City Clerk.
Having heard this resolution read, do I have a motion to accept? Motion by Witcher, have a motion by Witcher, do I have a second? Second by Honeycutt.
Is this the right time to make an amendment to the order?
If one can be made.
I mean, I'll make it, and I guess we'll vote on it, and it'll either get voted up or down. Whereas the city of Glasgow will agree to sell 2.524 acres.
Let me stop you. This is an option like it's read. We cannot amend their option. They have to amend it.
We either have to accept it or reject it.
Accept it or vote it down.
You can vote it down and decide not to accept it.
Okay.
And there might be an alternative at some
They may
point.
come back with another offer.
But we can't change the proposal they've made to us. We just either accept it or turn it down.
Is this the appropriate time for Judge Alexander to speak to us?
It's questions and answers. It's appropriate if he wants to speak. Yes. You can speak.
All right, Doug, over here.
Sure.
All right. So, first of all, Mayor, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to this deliberative body. I want to start out by just giving you a very, very brief overview of what we are doing as the Project Development Board, and you'll hear me. We all keep saying PDB just because that's easier to say than Project Development Board, but I am on the Project Development Board, or PDB, by virtue of being the senior circuit judge in our circuit. So John Alexander isn't on the board. The senior circuit judge of the circuit is on the board, and it just happens to be me. Similarly, Judge Pendleton is the senior district judge in our circuit and district. So he is on the board ex officio, as am I. Similarly, our county judge executive is on there by virtue of his office, and our circuit clerk is on there by virtue of her office. Mr. Alexander, Rich Alexander, was nominated by the Bar Association and appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and Joan Norris was nominated by members of the legislative body, that Senate and House, and approved by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So we are all on this for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to select a site for a judicial center and to approve the construction plans and then see that through to its fruition. I want to emphasize that the decision, obviously the elephant in the room is a park and a farmer's market, right? Those are, and when I use the word political, I don't mean that in the normal pejorative sense. I mean that you are a political body. You are elected as representatives of the community, and you make political decisions. And that is a political decision. Our body is a deliberative body, and it is a collaborative body, but it is not a political body. We don't make political decisions. We decide what we think is the best place to put our judicial center, and then how that's going to be designed. To that end, we have employed a couple of nationally renowned architecture firms. There was an elaborate process that went through for that to happen, and we met, we deliberated, we voted, and we selected these two firms that work in conjunction with one another. Everybody probably knows that Alliance was selected as our construction manager, and Alliance has built facilities all over this part of the country, and these two firms that we're dealing with architecturally have designed and built not only buildings, but specifically court facilities all over this part of the country, and even all over the country, one of them all over the country in general. We have met with them extensively. We've done sites. I don't think it's any secret that we've looked all over the community for places to try to put this. There is way more into it than what you might think if you weren't involved in that process. There is a lot more involved in terms of where it would go, how it would affect the surrounding area, what you would have to do, and who you might have to displace or buy property from, or whatever the case may be, to put it there, how it would affect traffic flow around the square, traffic in and out of your uptown. I grew up calling this uptown. A lot of people say downtown, but I mean, this has always been uptown to me. So how it would affect uptown, and there's been just so much that's been involved in it. And at the end of the day, our expert, we live in a world where you can Google something and 5 minutes later you're an expert on it. I know that that's not me, all right? I'm not an expert at building or site selection or site design, and we've hired people that are, so we're listening to them. And what they tell us is that location down in that the West Main area is the best place for any of a number of reasons. There's also so much that I don't want to bore you with, but there are rules that the Court of Justice has that we have to keep in mind in terms of locations, all right? And we've tried to collate all of that information. We've been meeting for, I think our first meeting was I don't know, we had an orientation about a year ago, and we've been meeting every month since then. I think 2 years, actually. But I digress, because what I wanted to talk to you about is this. The decision about whether you build a farmer's market and whether you build a park, either or, where you put them, that is a political decision. That is not our decision. We aren't involved in that. We don't want to be involved in that, and we're not. However, our location that they have chosen for us, and this was the location in general, that general area was the location that was envisioned by all of our elected leaders at the state level when they went to bat for this project. The Chief Justice came down here, we looked at it, we walked around. Everybody agreed principally that would be the general area that we needed to go. All right? Once they went down, we had at one point 12 different architects and building engineers walking around that site. They went up and down, they went all over the place. They came back basically for the way that the elevations work and the way that the site works, from where the water company is across that Dollar General Park and across part of that Main Street frontage is where they believe that this would be best situated. All right. Now, that being said, when we found that out, we sat down with them. We said, we can't design a building until we know what we've got. But they were able to design something. I keep calling it a footprint. I don't know if that's a technical term or not, but they designed us a general footprint about the amount of space that we would need, how it would lay, all of those things that would go into us trying to figure out what property to get. All right. So once that happened, we had to start doing our due diligence. As you know, it was a public vote. We've talked to the water company. We've dealt with the Dollar General store, actually Dollar General Corporation that owns that store. And, of course, we also have to deal with the city in one fashion or another because you own a substantial portion of that property. In order for us to do our due diligence, we've talked we have met with members, a member, 2 members of the Park Steering Committee, not as a body because our body has not met with that body, but individually, and I have been one of the people that's done that, and other members of our committee on a one-on-one basis have done that, and we have talked to them, all right? But our goal is not to see that there is a park or a farmer's market. If that's what you decide to do, we are happy if that's what happens as citizens of the community. But our goal and our charge that we have is to make sure that we find a place for this Justice Center and we build the best Justice Center that, $32 million plus can buy. And we're going to do that. But we don't feel as stewards and as representatives of the community, we don't feel that we should acquire more than we have to acquire or that we should design something that takes up more space than it has to take up. We have a design in mind, at least in general broad strokes, that would be the amount of property that we need. You've seen some of that, Mayor, so you know what we're talking about. That's what our interest is. I'm here because I wanted to clarify maybe some of the issues, and I'll be happy to answer any questions any of you have. But I wanted to clarify some of the issues because it's the danger that that we have when there is so much discussion, and people know a little bit of it and they don't know a lot of it. And I know it's a cliche, but I'm kind of reminded of the blind guy that grabs the elephant by the trunk and thinks he's got a rope, and then the other guy grabs the leg and thinks he's got a tree limb or whatever, right? I mean, if you don't know the whole picture, then you can't. So I'm trying to be here to help give us the whole picture, all right? What you all decide to do as a body is up to you. It's your decision to make as a political body, all right? Regardless of the way you go, our design, we already have the general parameters for our design that we want, and we already think that we know the amount of space that we need, and we know in general that we can design what we need to design within the confines of what's going on down there on West Main Street. We're not, if we're not going to have all of that property to build that, all right? We need a place for parking, we need a place for our building, we need a place to be able to do some other things that go along with it. It's going to be a substantially larger building than what we have now, but we can make this work. And when you look at the total amount of space that you've got in that area down there, there wouldn't be any reason that we would need, 6 acres or whatever the case may be. So we can make this thing work. And I will tell you this, I can't speak for the county because I'm not part of that political body, and I can't speak for you guys because I'm not part of your political body. But our deliberative group, the PDB, has a plan, and we can move forward with our plan whenever we can get access to the rest of the property, which is essentially some of what you all own down there. And I will say this, just as a person that's been dealing with this for a long time, the guy that was up here doing the presentation, guys, we need a win as a community. We need to show that we're not just fighting all the time, and we need to be able to get together and it's been presented to me, and I think this is true. You just can't do public business this way, but if 2 or 3 of us could have just gotten in a room, the proverbial sitting around and discussing things, I really don't think that everybody is so far apart that they think, that this can't work. But to the rest of the world, they're looking at us and thinking, we're nuts. A park and a farmer's market needs X amount of acres, and the court facility and the parking needs X amount of acres, or Y amount of acres, all right? So, you're not a math teacher, but I'll still apologize to you. So, you take your X and you take your Y and you add them together, and darn, we've got that much property or more down there. So why on earth couldn't you get both of these things done if that's what your political will as a group is? But whether it is or whether it isn't, our project can get done. And everybody that I've talked to, people that are in favor of this resolution, Judge, we want you to get your court facility, all right? People that are against this resolution. Now, Judge, we want you to get your court facility. Well, we're stuck in the middle. I don't know anything to anybody except the people that elected me as circuit judge, and I first got elected as district judge, and I'm continuing to get elected as circuit judge, and, I'm getting ready to finish 16 years at this gig, and, I owe those people the obligation to do the best thing I can do to put our courthouse somewhere. I don't know, nobody owns me, and nobody's telling me what to do, all right? My conscience is telling me what to do, and our group, we're getting together, and we're meeting, and we're collaborating, and we're talking to the experts, and we're taking their advice, but, I'm not sitting up here advocating for somebody else. I'm advocating for the people in this community, and not only that, but the people around the state that have to come to our courthouse, and they, and they're getting in, you can't get up the stairs. We've got people that can't. We're not arguing about whether or not we need a courthouse, all right? So I apologize. I get exercised over it. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to get across to you all is that, I don't have a stake in your all's decision. I wanted to clarify some of the issues that I have been approached by or approached with, and that have been raised to us. And I wanted to explain our process for how we got where we got. But I don't know anybody on either side of this debate anything. But what I want is to put this part of the debate behind us, and let us get the property that we need for our judicial center, and to make it the best that we can make. And, I think that's what you guys want, whether you agree or disagree with the resolution. I think as a body, you want it. You want something to be proud of. These things lift up. I mean, we've all been, all the lawyers and several of the people have been to a lot of these different things, court facilities around the state. And I mean, it is something that people are proud of, and it is something that lifts up everything around it. There are places where you go in there, and Bowling Green's a perfect example. You go in there, and that park back off the square over there, there was nothing going on over there until they built that. Now restaurants have popped up over there, businesses, offices. It's been cleaned up. It's going to lift up everything around it, regardless of what happens. But at the end of the day, we have, and I'm not going to lie to anybody, we have sat down individually with people that are interested in this park and this farmers market being down in that area. And what we want to do with our court facility is not going to get in the way of that, if that is what you all as a group ultimately decide to do. But we're wanting our, I say our, it's not ours. We would like for it to be ours. We want the space that we need to make this judicial center the way we have envisioned it a reality. And I would love to see there some collaboration between or among different groups, because at the end of the day, all people see is the tip of, the outcome of these things, and all the sausage making and stuff is generally not on full view, but it's been on full view with this issue, and I think it's a shame, because I think that we all really want the same thing. Everybody can disagree about what's best for their community, but everybody wants what's best for their community. And fighting about it, as naive as that sounds, arguing about it in non-deliberative fashion, it isn't how to do it. And so I wanted to just kind of clear the air as much as I could, and also answer any questions that anybody might have. I've been disagreed with before. Probably every one of you has disagreed with me about something that I've done before. And the good Lord gave me these broad shoulders for a reason, I guess. If you want to get mad at me, but I'm going to do what I think's best, and what I have a public trust for the people that put me in this spot, and that's what I'm trying to discharge. Yes, sir.
So, Judge,
Can I do you call on people, or do I? All right.
So, Judge, it doesn't matter to you if you buy it from the city or the county. You're going to get the land that you need for your project.
Our project, our design, our footprint that we need, we have a pretty good idea what it is. I personally don't really care how that happens, because we're not gonna take more than we need. We feel like we owe that to everybody to be good stewards, and we're not gonna take more than we need. And what we need is what we're gonna use. Yes.
What happens, the magistrates have taken it on themselves to promote this with an indication that they want, of course, they want to join together and try to get the Justice Center down there somewhere. And we're the same way. We don't want to lose that no matter what happens. Well, what happens if you say you don't need all this property here that they're trying to get? What happens if it falls apart with the dollar store? Then, or if you didn't have any way to go, this was already off the table, what would that do to your project?
Well, if I understand you, I don't feel like I'm necessarily at liberty to talk about all of our conversations with the dollar store, other than to say I feel really, really good that it's not going to fall apart with the dollar store. And that's probably as far as I can go. We gave those guys, and I don't say this to highlight anything necessarily, but I contacted an executive vice president from the dollar store probably less than 6 weeks ago, and they were wonderful. She was the lady that I spoke to expressed an interest in the dollar store being the type of community partner that we would want them to be. And, basically, I think we're in good shape with the dollar store. And so I think that obviously that property behind it, which is owned by the water company, that's where we are next, and we've already met with you guys, and I think we have kind of a tentative, the water company has it's a public vote, so no secrets there, but the water company, I think, is going to be on board with us, and so, we're really down to the final part. Yeah.
Owners of this property would be the fiscal court, correct?
Yeah, the county owns the project. The purchase of the property is completely reimbursed by the state, and the
Payments as rent.
yeah, and the state pays rent and basically rents the totality of the facility.
So that being the purchaser, aren't they on the same obligation we are, that they can pay no more than the appraised value, and we can take no less than the appraised value? What are you going to do when the dollar store says, we have this many dollars for a moving expense? That's not part of the appraised value, it's a going business, relocating. What do you do on that?
The dollar store knows what the rules are, and they've been, like I said, wonderful to work with, and I believe we're working with the dollar store successfully towards a purchase of that property without, with them understanding what the limitations are as to what we can pay.
Hey, Judge, do you know how much of the land do you need of ours?
I do not. I don't have an exact number right now. What I can tell you is, the footprint that we have kind of have been approached with our design folks, and that we've collaborated on and kind of talked about, is going to largely be where the dollar store goes back to the old Glasgow glass building and all the way up to Front Street, and then kind of down Front Street for parking. But now it's not, and then some of that West Main road frontage is going to be necessary. Not the complete amount of it, but some of it. And I think that it's something that would still leave some space there for basically anything else that I've seen. Whether that happens or not is not our concern, because our concern is getting this built. But I believe, we have talked to some people on that committee, that steering committee for the park, and I believe that we've got a meeting of the minds about what would happen and what wouldn't happen. And, again, we can live with what I believe that I don't mean that like we're settling. I don't mean that. I mean, what we have decided that we need to do is something that I think would work hand in glove with that. But whether that happens or not is not my concern, or it's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is to just talk to you all about the best way about it. You all will decide what the best way is. I'm just here to try to give you as many facts as I can give you.
So I believe this afternoon, WCLU reported that it was somewhere around 2.5 acres of the city property that would be needed. And I think I just wanted to say this out loud again. The people who have designed this footprint are, I think you called them, nationally renowned architecture firms. They know it will fit. They know it won't be crowded or an eyesore. This is what they do. They are the professionals that know exactly what they need.
When you factor that in, plus you factor in the amount of property that the Dollar General office is bringing to the table, there's a roadway there that would be factored into that as well. That would be part of where our building is, and then the property behind it that the water company owns, all the way back to Front Street. You're not talking about 2.5 acres anymore. That's not city-owned property. But when you add that into this, then you're talking upward. 3.5 or
right,
close to 4.
Okay.
And it's no secret that there were other places. Everybody knows that one of the things that we looked at, and we had the architects come down and look at, was this property down here on the corner where the bank is. And if you look at that, that's 1.3 6 acres or 1.7 acres, and they said, given that we wouldn't have to build parking because there's all this other parking around the square, that would be sufficient for our building. We might have to go up another level. We'd rather not have to go up another level. We'd rather have it on this spot over here that has a good elevation. It goes down where, you've got an underground level, and then you could have what you had on the surface and have the front looking really nice and have a good ingress there. And have a place for a sally port for secure transportation of inmates and things like that, which you wouldn't have over here. Plus, you wouldn't be able to alleviate the square. I mean, you'd still be clogging up the square with courthouse stuff. And so, if we get our own place with our own dedicated parking, then we're alleviating an awful lot. And I just think that helps the traffic flow and helps people on the square that are merchants and things of that nature. Do you have a question?
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, go ahead.
Mr. Basil has a question, but
The only way that this project happens is with the fiscal court buying the land for this project to be built on, correct?
the purchase would run through the fiscal court, whichever way it happened.
And the proposal that we're looking at tonight was the first proposal that's been made to the city, and it was made to the city last Thursday or Friday, correct?
As far as I know, that's correct. Let me say that I can't speak for what the fiscal court did. So this is not, this proposal that you're voting on is not the PDB's proposal to go through. It's the fiscal court's proposal.
The only proposal that we have.
It's the only, well, as far as I know, yes, sir.
And it is, there's not been any effort made by the city to control what the county does with the property you don't use for the new building. So if the county wanted to build a park or a farmer's market or release that land for someone else to do that, there's not anything we're doing tonight to keep the county from doing that, correct?
I mean, whatever steps you all take will dictate how you, I mean, I think that, this is two lawyers talking, right? But I mean, you know how this works, and I think you can put whatever kind of parameters you want to put on what you do as on a sale.
If we accept their offer, there's no parameters on it. They can use it however they want.
As written.
That's, their vote would be as written.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't give you any kind of legal advice, obviously, and so I don't want to be.
I was trying to emphasize, we're not trying to control the property with this vote tonight. We're trying to facilitate the building of a $32 million justice center, and that's the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, and again, those are your all's decisions to make, not mine. I wanted to just come up here and explain to you all that what the Project Development Board has decided to do moving forward, and what we want to do is not to build a 6-acre campus of buildings, or, structures or whatever. We want to build what we want to build and what we need to build to discharge our obligation. We've got we can't have a design until we know what property we got, right? But we want to do what's best for us, and, of course, there's maintenance too. We don't need a lot of space that we don't have something on.
If they do buy the property and they design and they've got the flexibility to design as they feel appropriate, then once that's done, whatever property's allowed, they can do whatever they want to do.
And the magistrates don't design.
I was going to say, when you say they, I want to make sure that they means us. In other words, the Project Development Board decides on the design of the facility based upon the advice that we get from our experts. Correct.
Judge Alexander, if I could just ask a couple questions. Number one, I appreciate you being here because I think that sheds a lot of light on, and there's a lot of misconceptions as you spoke. Tonight, I'll be voting against this amendment only because it entails all 5 acres of the land. What I would vote for is that if the PDB board went back and figured out what they needed and then presented it to the city council, it's not that I have an issue with you or really anybody on the PDB board, but I don't want to put the future of the people voting that have elected me in the hands of the magistrates. And I believe that I've got to represent my constituents more in a situation if you said, hey, here's 2.5 acres or 2.75 acres, if you need 10 more feet. Because I do think that,
Yeah, I understand.
I do think that we as a community need a win. And this is a situation that the two groups kind of started a little bit adversarial, and I think that there's enough room down there for all of us to get all the things we need and to declutter the square some with, I love Entertain Glasgow, but moving them down there. So I don't want you to think when I vote that it's any, because I do think around 2.5 acres is ability to do it, and I don't want to put the county in control of the city's assets on an option for 6 months.
Sure. And that's your all's decision.
Right.
You know, again, I'm not advocating for
I know.
either action. I'm just wanting to try to give you all the details from the perspective of people that have been in on these meetings.
But the courthouse is very important for our community, and I think the farmer's market, I think they've waited long enough. So I just wanted you to know why
I agree. And, I want to say this to defend us as a city and as a county and as a community, just real fast. There are several of these court projects, these judicial center projects going on around the state. Most of them are having one issue or another similar to this because, people have their ideas and people have what they want. And every one is different, the challenges that they're facing. But, this is not unusual. And one of the things that I commented on in one of our meetings was that it's a good thing to be in a city that doesn't just have all kinds of vacant property laying around with nothing happening within 2 or 3 blocks of downtown or uptown. And so I feel like that's commendable for our city that we're in that situation. But at the same time, they're getting a little frustrated with us because we haven't been able to pull this off. And I will consider it, when there's enough room for the whole deal to happen, or at least for our deal to happen, and then you all to decide what, if anything, you want to do with the rest of it. You may not do anything, but it's going to be a real black eye for us as a community if we can't get this thing figured out one way or the other. I feel like that is true.
I'd like to say something. We're focusing on the wrong thing. We can't control what the magistrates have asked us for. We can only say yes or no. I think we ought to say yes, but we can control how we spend the money we receive for this property. And that's what I think we need to control tonight. We could earmark that money for a farmer's market to be built on other property that the city owns close to downtown. Mayor Armstrong has a plan already for that, don't you, Mayor?
Correct. We've got a rendering that's 3.5 years old, and we could put it on the lot behind Gilbert and Gilbert.
And I just want to make sure you all do.
We understand,
but they're asking you to do one thing or the other.
Okay.
I was up here to try to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Make sure that, all the there's all kinds of things being said, and had anybody
Thank you, but I think I have the floor for a minute.
What my job is as a member of the project development board.
So I think I will offer an amendment to their offer to purchase to say that the funds we receive from this,
Can't make an amendment to
Can't
that. They
change the
said.
document, she said.
we can't change, we can,
Change their option.
their option.
We can put a stipulation if they buy it.
If they buy it,
Funds would go directly for that.
the funds, I believe that's what I'd like to
Make an
do.
amendment to what they
Okay.
offered us.
Oh, so we can only change a certain part?
Yeah.
He called,
Let's,
well, he called
as
the
a
question, so I don't
group,
think we can
no, we
say
can't.
anything.
Calling the question doesn't do a thing.
Just ignore him? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it really, it does it, Dan?
It can.
It can, under, no,
If I may,
Thank you.
if I may, you could offer an amendment that doesn't affect the option that's been requested for us to vote on. We can't change the parameters of that offer. If you wanted,
But doesn't attaching a stipulation change the parameters of the offer?
No.
We're not, we're accepting their offer, but we're
With
controlling how we're going to
parameters.
spend their money.
We're accepting their offer with parameters.
And even you could do it as a separate ordinance or resolution. It doesn't have to be part of this.
Okay.
It's certainly a good idea to use it that way.
So can we make a separate one to say we don't need, but we don't want to sell but 2.5 acres, or you can't?
No, you
Can't
can't.
change their.
That's why I was accepting their terms, but just controlling how we spend the money we receive.
Wendell, do you have any concern that this loss of location would take away a green space from us? Because there would be none.
No,
You have no concerns after sitting on the downtown steering committee?
no.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, I got a couple comments. I mean, I don't think this is going to be an easy process, and I don't know what the problem is with compromise between the three agencies that's involved. The planning, their board, the county, and us. Once before, the judge exec came to us with a plan and a proposal about what they needed, space, and then how we could all benefit from it. We as a body voted to sell them some property, but after talking to multiple people in the community and everything else, I believe, first of all, I'm going to vote no, because I think it's a slap in the face to our community to all of a sudden come to us and say, we want to buy the whole area and totally throw out all the work we've done. This group, we worked and voted on a park and a farmer's market and doing all this work, and then now the magistrate's going to come and just say, we're going to take it all, and we're not going to guarantee you anything. We're not going to say we're going to give you a park. We're not going to say we're going to give you a farmer's market. Not even going to say we maybe that. Guys, again, I think it's a slap in the face to us and all the work we've been doing to move this city in a direction. We have a chance for a compromise. I think if we say no, these guys have already said that's the site they want. They're making the steps through Dollar Store, the water company, and they'll be coming back to us. And then the county will have to buy whatever they need from us. They'll have to come back to us. So I'm voting no on this for those reasons.
I'll call for the question for the third time. Just vote on it, get it out, and do whatever needs to be done. Roll call vote.
Okay.
Are we voting on the way it's written?
Proposed to us, yes.
Okay. Norris?
No.
Trigg?
No.
Witcher? Benil?
Yes.
Gauntz?
No.
Honeycutt?
Yes.
Kirkpatrick?
Yes.
Lowry?
No.
Neal?
No.
5 noes.
5 noes, the opposite in favor. Next. Please contain yourself so we finish this. The next item is, that's the last item. We have announcements today. I want to remind everyone to be prepared for the household hazardous waste collection and the free shredder day on Saturday, August 27th at Beaver Trail from 9 a.m. to noon. A listing of acceptable and unacceptable items can be found in the city's website Facebook page. Labor Day holiday notice is Saturday, September the 3rd. Glasgow Regional Landfill will be open from 8 to 11:30 a.m. And then first Saturday, recycling located at 310 West Front Street will be open Saturday, September the 3rd from 8 to 11:30. And Monday, September the 5th, 2022, the Glasgow City Hall Street Department, Sanitation, Transit, Stormwater, and Landfill will be closed. Garbage and recycling on Monday, September the 5th, and Tuesday, September the 6th, will be collected on Tuesday, September the 6th. Please have your garbage and your curbside recycling out by 7 a.m. Our next regular scheduled meeting will be Monday, the 12th, 2022, at 7 p.m. at the City Chambers, City Hall here, chamber of the City Council. Is there any other announcements?
Well, I'm sorry, I would like to invite people out to the Gorham Park on Tuesday and Thursday of this week. We have the Weldon Tennis Association going to be putting on tennis drills and clinics and a tournament for ladies on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, and then on Thursday night, the entire community is invited to come out. There's no cost for the event, so grab a rack. If you don't have one, we'll get one for you. Thank you.
No other announcements?
Motion to adjourn?
Have a motion